The lifeguard in disguise. Emily Harper had always lived by a simple motto: do what you can with what you have, no matter the odds. Her life, however, was far from simple. The small town of Willow Creek was where she called home, a place where every face was familiar, and every struggle was shared in whispers that traveled faster than the wind. Emily had grown up in this town, her father a factory worker and her mother a nurse, both of whom had instilled in her a relentless work ethic and a profound sense of empathy. The echoes of their lessons followed her even after their passing, leaving Emily as the sole provider for her younger brother, Danny, and her widowed grandmother, Maggie. Danny, bright-eyed and curious, was on the verge of starting college, his dreams boundless but tethered to the weight of their financial limitations. Maggie, though sharp in wit, had grown frail with age, her strength dwindling with the years. Emily worked tirelessly at the Crystal Haven Resort, the town's crown jewel and the only luxury hotel for miles. Her role as a pool attendant was far from glamorous, but she took pride in ensuring the safety of guests. While others saw her as just another uniformed employee blending into the background, Emily saw herself as a silent guardian of the pool's shimmering depths. The day began like any other. The sun cast a golden hue over the resort's manicured gardens, the air humming with the chatter of vacationers. Emily was stationed by the pool, her clipboard in hand as she made notes about the day's maintenance schedule. Despite the serene surroundings, she was always on high alert, her eyes sweeping the pool with the precision of a hawk. The resort manager, Franklin Miles, was a man Emily tried to avoid at all costs. Known for his condescending attitude and short temper, Franklin took pride in micromanaging every aspect of the hotel. Emily had once overheard him dismissing her as just another replaceable worker. Those words had stung, but she wore them like armor now, a reminder to keep her head down and focus on her job. Harper. Franklin's booming voice interrupted her thoughts as he approached, his face flushed with irritation. The poolside chairs aren't aligned. Fix it before the guests start complaining. Yes, Mr. Miles, Emily replied, her tone measured. As Franklin stomped away, Emily sighed and set about the tedious task of adjusting the chairs. Her hands moved mechanically, but her mind wandered to Danny's college applications and the ever-growing pile of medical bills sitting on their kitchen counter. The tranquility of the afternoon was shattered by a sudden, high-pitched scream. Emily's head snapped toward the sound. A young woman stood at the edge of the pool, her face pale as she pointed to the water. Without a second thought, Emily sprinted toward the commotion. In the pool, two small children were flailing, their tiny bodies struggling to stay afloat. Time seemed to slow as Emily's instincts kicked in. She tore off her shoes and dove into the water, the cool shock jolting her senses. The cries of the panicked mother and murmurs of the gathering crowd faded into the background as Emily focused solely on reaching the children. Her arms cut through the water with practiced ease, and she reached the first child, a boy of about 5. Within seconds, grasping him securely, she propelled herself toward the second child, a younger girl whose struggles were growing weaker. With both children in her arms, Emily fought against the resistance of the water, her lungs burning as she pushed herself toward the edge of the pool. Strong hands reached down to help pull the children from her grasp, and Emily hoisted herself out of the water, collapsing onto the tiles. The children coughed and sputtered as the gathered guests cheered and applauded. Their mother knelt beside them, tears streaming down her face as she cradled them tightly. Emily, soaked and gasping for breath, allowed herself a moment of relief. She had done it. The children were safe, but before she could fully process the gravity of what had just happened, Franklin's voice sliced through the air like a whip. "What the hell do you think you're doing, Harper?" Emily looked up, bewildered, as Franklin stormed toward her, his face a mask of fury. The crowd fell silent, their celebratory mood replaced by unease. "They were drowning," Emily said, still catching her breath. "I had to." "You had to what?" "Abandon your post. Disrupt the guests." Franklin's voice grew louder with each word. Do you have any idea how much liability you just created for this resort? If anything had happened to those kids, we'd be facing lawsuits." Emily stared at him, incredulous. "I saved their lives," Franklin sneered. "And in doing so, you jeopardized your job. Pack your things, Harper. You're fired." The words hit Emily like a punch to the gut. She opened her mouth to protest, but the lump in her throat rendered her silent. As Franklin turned on his heel and marched away, the crowd began to disperse, their murmurs of disapproval fading into the background. Emily sat there, drenched and stunned, the weight of the moment pressing down on her. The mother of the rescued children approached her, her expression a mix of gratitude and outrage. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice trembling. "I'm so sorry this happened to you. I'll make sure everyone knows what you did." Emily managed a weak nod, but the truth was clear. She had saved 2 lives, yet lost her livelihood. What Emily didn't know was that someone else had been watching the entire scene unfold, someone with the power to change everything. Hidden away in the resort's executive suite, Evelyn Ashford, the reclusive owner of the Crystal Haven Resort, had seen the rescue on the pool's security cameras. And what she discovered next would leave everyone, including Emily, utterly shocked. The secret witness. Emily Harper walked home that evening, her steps slow and heavy as the weight of the day's events pressed down on her. The warm glow of the setting sun seemed out of place, mocking the storm that churned within her. She had saved 2 children, done the unthinkable, the heroic, and yet she was leaving her job with nothing to show for it but soaked clothes and the echoes of Franklin's harsh reprimands. Her mind raced as she replayed the events. Why had Franklin reacted so cruelly? Surely saving lives was worth breaking protocol. She couldn't understand it, but there was no denying the reality. She was unemployed, and her family needed her. When Emily arrived home, Danny and Maggie were already waiting. Danny's face lit up when he saw her, but his smile faded as he noticed her expression. "Emily, what happened?" he asked, concern coloring his voice. Emily hesitated, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Nothing you need to worry about. How was school today?" Danny narrowed his eyes. You're soaked, and you look like you've been through a war. Did something happen at the resort?" Maggie, sitting in her favorite armchair, leaned forward. "Emily, we're your family. Don't keep things from us." With a heavy sigh, Emily relented. She recounted the day's events, the children drowning, her dive into the pool, and Franklin's harsh response. As she spoke, her voice wavered, but she pushed through, refusing to let tears spill in front of them. When she finished, Maggie's eyes burned with indignation. "That man's a fool if he can't see the value of what you did. Saving lives is worth more than keeping chairs straight." Danny's fists clenched. "How could he fire you for doing the right thing? That's so unfair." Emily shrugged, forcing another weak smile. "Fair or not, it's done. I'll find another job. Don't worry about me." But as she said the words, doubt gnawed at her. Jobs in Willow Creek were scarce, especially ones that could cover their growing bills. Her chest tightened as the enormity of their situation sank in. Meanwhile, at the Crystal Haven Resort, Evelyn Ashford sat alone in her penthouse suite, watching the pool's security footage on repeat. She was a woman of precision and power, with a sharp eye for detail and a reputation for staying out of the spotlight. Most of the resort staff didn't even know what she looked like, and she preferred it that way. Evelyn had built her empire on integrity and hard work, but she had also learned to trust her instincts, and something about Emily Harper had caught her attention. As she watched the footage, she observed Emily's actions with a critical eye. Emily hadn't hesitated. She had noticed the children in danger before anyone else and reacted instantly. There had been no panic, no second-guessing, just pure determination to save lives. Evelyn admired that. She paused the video, her gaze lingering on Franklin Miles as he berated Emily in front of the guests. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Franklin's behavior was unacceptable, and his decision to fire Emily was reckless. Evelyn's assistant, Noah Grant, knocked softly on the door before stepping into the suite. "You wanted to see me, Ms. Ashford?" "Yes, Noah." "Close the door," Evelyn said, her tone brisk. "I want a full report on Franklin Miles, his management record, any complaints filed against him, everything." Noah's brow furrowed. "Is this about the incident at the pool today?" "Partially," Evelyn replied. "But I also want to know more about Emily Harper. Start with her employee file and work from there. I want to know what kind of person she is, how she ended up here, and why she was willing to risk everything to save those children." Noah nodded, already pulling out his tablet to take notes. "I'll have the report ready by morning." "One more thing," Evelyn added, her voice softening. "Reach out to the parents of the children she saved. I want to hear their perspective." Noah raised an eyebrow, but he didn't question her. Evelyn Ashford was known for her meticulous approach to decision-making, and he trusted her instincts implicitly. The next morning, Emily woke early, unable to sleep as the stress of her situation weighed heavily on her. She spent hours combing through job listings, but nothing seemed promising. The thought of leaving Willow Creek crossed her mind, but she quickly dismissed it. Danny and Maggie needed her here. Just as she was about to give up for the day, there was a knock at the door. Emily frowned, exchanging a puzzled look with Danny. They rarely had visitors. When she opened the door, she was greeted by a man in a crisp suit, holding a sleek black folder. "Miss Harper?" he asked, his tone polite but formal. "Yes, that's me," Emily replied cautiously. "My name is Noah Grant. I'm the executive assistant to Evelyn Ashford, the owner of the Crystal Haven Resort." Emily's eyes widened. "The owner?" "Yes," Noah confirmed with a slight smile. "Ms. Ashford would like to meet with you. She's reviewed the events of yesterday and believes a conversation is warranted." Emily's stomach churned with a mix of anxiety and curiosity. Why does she want to talk to me?" "I'm afraid I can't disclose the details," Noah said. "But I assure you, Ms. Ashford's intentions are entirely professional. If you're willing, I can drive you to the resort now." Emily hesitated, glancing back at Danny and Maggie, who were watching from the doorway. Maggie gave her a small nod of encouragement, and Danny mouthed, "Go for it." Taking a deep breath, Emily nodded. "Okay, let me grab my things." The drive to the resort felt surreal. Noah made polite conversation, but Emily's thoughts were elsewhere. She couldn't shake the feeling that this meeting could change everything, for better or worse. When they arrived, Noah led her through the grand lobby, bypassing the curious stares of the staff, and into a private elevator that took them to the penthouse suite. The doors opened to reveal a stunningly elegant space with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of the town. Evelyn Ashford stood by the window, her posture regal yet approachable. She turned as they entered, her piercing blue eyes locking onto Emily's. "Miss Harper," Evelyn said, extending a hand. "Thank you for coming." Emily shook her hand, her nerves barely contained. "It's an honor to meet you, Ms. Ashford. Please, call me Evelyn," she said with a warm smile. "Have a seat." Emily sat on the plush chair across from Evelyn, feeling out of place in the luxurious surroundings. Evelyn studied her for a moment before speaking. "I've reviewed the security footage from yesterday," Evelyn began. "And I must say, your actions were nothing short of heroic." Emily blinked, caught off guard by the praise. "I just did what anyone would have done in that situation." "No," Evelyn said firmly. "Not everyone would have done what you did. Many would have hesitated or waited for someone else to act. You saved 2 lives, Miss Harper, and I believe that deserves recognition." Emily felt a lump rise in her throat. "Thank you," but Franklin didn't see it that way. Evelyn's expression darkened. Franklin Miles' behavior was inexcusable. He's no longer employed at this resort. Emily's eyes widened. "You fired him?" "Yes," Evelyn said simply. "And now, I'd like to discuss your future." She leaned forward, her tone softening. You've shown incredible courage and leadership, Emily. Those are qualities I value deeply. If you're willing, I'd like to offer you a new position here at Crystal Haven. Emily's heart raced as she processed Evelyn's words. This was more than she had ever dared to hope for. But what Evelyn said next would leave her utterly speechless. The offer of a lifetime. Emily Harper sat frozen in the luxurious chair, Evelyn Ashford's words echoing in her mind. I'd like to offer you a new position here at Crystal Haven. The weight of the offer seemed too surreal, too enormous to grasp in the moment. The sterile scent of the penthouse and the soft hum of the air conditioning faded into the background as Emily struggled to find her voice. Ms. Ashford, I don't know what to say, she finally managed, her voice tinged with disbelief. You're offering me a job, after everything that happened. Evelyn smiled, her eyes sparkling with a mix of amusement and admiration. Not just any job, Miss Harper. I want you to lead our new guest safety and well-being initiative. Your quick thinking and decisive actions during the incident at the pool demonstrated qualities that I value highly: courage, empathy, and the ability to stay calm under pressure. Emily blinked, her mind racing to process Evelyn's words. Guest safety and well-being initiative. It sounded important, far more important than any role she'd ever held before. I'm not sure I'm qualified for something like that, Emily admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Nonsense, Evelyn said firmly. You've already proven yourself capable. This position isn't just about enforcing rules. It's about ensuring that every guest feels safe and cared for during their stay. You understand that better than anyone. Emily glanced down at her hands, still trembling slightly from the emotional whirlwind of the past 24 hours. But why me? There must be others more experienced, people with credentials. Evelyn leaned forward, her gaze unwavering. Experience and credentials matter, yes, but so does character. You acted when others didn't. That speaks volumes about who you are. And frankly, we need more people like you in leadership roles. The silence that followed was heavy with possibility. Emily's thoughts drifted to Danny and Maggie, to the bills piling up on their kitchen counter, and to the crushing sense of failure she'd felt walking away from the resort the day before. This opportunity could change everything. What would the role involve? Emily asked cautiously, not wanting to seem too eager. Evelyn's lips curved into a satisfied smile, as if she had been waiting for that question. You'd oversee all safety protocols, including training staff on emergency response procedures, reviewing security measures, and ensuring that incidents like yesterday are handled with the utmost professionalism. You'll also be responsible for developing guest assistance programs, offering a human touch when it's needed most. Emily's heart pounded. It sounded daunting, yet exhilarating. And of course, Evelyn added, the position comes with a significant salary increase and full benefits, including medical coverage for your family. That last detail hit Emily like a lightning bolt. Medical coverage. For Maggie, her grandmother's mounting healthcare expenses had been a constant source of anxiety. This job wasn't just a lifeline for Emily. It was a chance to truly support her family. She met Evelyn's gaze, her resolve hardening. I'll do it. I accept the position. Evelyn's smile widened. Excellent. I had a feeling you would. She stood and extended a hand. Emily rose to shake it, feeling a sense of validation she hadn't felt in years. Your first day will be tomorrow, Evelyn continued. Noah will walk you through the details and help you get settled. And Emily. Yes, Ms. Ashford. Call me Evelyn. We're going to be working closely together. Emily nodded, a small smile breaking through the lingering tension. Thank you, Evelyn. As Noah escorted Emily out of the penthouse, her mind buzzed with questions and possibilities. What would the other staff think? Would they accept her in this new role or resent her sudden promotion? And most importantly, could she live up to the expectations Evelyn had placed on her? Back at home, Emily shared the news with her family over dinner. Danny's eyes widened with excitement, while Maggie's face softened with relief. "Medical coverage?" Maggie asked, her voice cracking slightly. "Oh, Emily, that's a blessing. I just hope I can handle it," Emily admitted, twirling her fork absent-mindedly. "This isn't like anything I've done before." "You'll be amazing," Danny said confidently. "You're the strongest person I know." Maggie reached across the table to squeeze Emily's hand. "You've been carrying us through tough times for years, sweetheart. This is your time to shine." Emily felt a swell of gratitude as she looked at her family. They had always been her reason for pushing forward, even when the odds seemed insurmountable. Now she had a chance to give them the life they deserved. The next morning, Emily arrived at Crystal Haven, feeling a mixture of nervousness and determination. Noah greeted her in the lobby and led her to a sleek conference room where a stack of documents awaited. "This is your onboarding packet," Noah explained. "It includes everything you need to know about your new responsibilities. Evelyn has also arranged for you to shadow key department heads over the next 2 weeks to get a feel for how each team operates." Emily nodded, flipping through the documents. The tasks outlined were complex, but she felt a spark of excitement as she envisioned herself stepping into this new role. As the day progressed, Emily met with various team members, including the head of security and the director of guest services. Some greeted her warmly, impressed by the story of her heroism, while others were more reserved, their expressions betraying hints of skepticism. Later that afternoon, Emily was walking through the lobby when she overheard 2 housekeepers whispering nearby. "Can you believe they gave her that position?" one said, her tone dripping with envy. "She's just a pool attendant." "She saved those kids," the other replied, though her voice was hesitant. "I guess that counts for something." Emily's chest tightened. She had expected some resistance, but hearing it firsthand stung. She resolved to prove herself, not through words, but through actions. As the week went on, Emily threw herself into her new role. She reviewed incident reports, attended training sessions, and began drafting new safety protocols. She also made a point to connect with the staff, listening to their concerns and asking for their input. Slowly, she began to earn their trust. But not everyone was willing to give her a chance. Graham Peterson, the head of facilities, was particularly resistant. A gruff man in his late 40s, Graham had been with the resort for over a decade and was known for his no-nonsense attitude. "I don't see why we need all these changes," Graham said during a meeting. "We've been running this place just fine for years." "With all due respect, Mr. Peterson," Emily replied, keeping her tone calm. "Yesterday's incident showed us that there's room for improvement. My goal isn't to criticize what's been done. It's to make things better for everyone." Graham's eyes narrowed, but he said nothing more. Emily knew it would take time to win him over, but she wasn't going to back down. By the end of her first week, Emily felt a growing sense of purpose. She had faced challenges and doubts, but she had also begun to see the impact she could make. And as she stood in the lobby, watching guests laugh and mingle under the resort's shimmering chandeliers, she realized something. She wasn't just working a job anymore. She was building a future, for herself, for her family, and for everyone who stepped through Crystal Haven's doors. What Emily didn't know was that the storm brewing behind the scenes was far from over. Franklin Miles wasn't the kind of man to take his dismissal lying down, and his next move would threaten everything Emily had fought to achieve. A storm in the shadows. Emily Harper had spent the better part of her first week in her new role proving herself. Her days were long and challenging, but she ended each one with a growing sense of accomplishment. Slowly but surely, she was earning the respect of the staff and the confidence of Evelyn Ashford. Yet, amidst her victories, a sense of unease lingered like a shadow at the edge of her mind. There were whispers around the resort, rumors of discontent among certain employees, and murmurs about Franklin Miles, the former manager who had been dismissed after Emily's heroic act and his subsequent mishandling of the situation. Though Franklin was gone, his presence still loomed, a ghost haunting the luxurious halls of Crystal Haven. Franklin Miles sat in a dimly lit bar on the outskirts of town, nursing a glass of whiskey. The once pristine suit he had been known for was now wrinkled and unkempt, and the confidence he had carried like a badge of honor was replaced with a simmering rage. Being fired had shattered his carefully constructed image, and the thought of Emily Harper stepping into the spotlight in his absence only deepened the wound. "This isn't over," he muttered under his breath, his fingers tightening around the glass. He had connections, people who owed him favors, people who knew how to dig up dirt and make problems for those who dared cross him. Franklin's phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at the screen and smirked. A message from one of his contacts read, "Got the intel you asked for. Call me when you're ready." He downed the rest of his drink, a sinister grin spreading across his face. Franklin Miles wasn't about to fade quietly into the background. If he couldn't have Crystal Haven, he'd make sure no one else could enjoy it either. Especially not Emily Harper. Back at the resort, Emily was preparing for her first major meeting with the department heads. She had spent hours poring over reports, brainstorming ideas, and drafting a proposal for the new safety protocols she planned to implement. The initiative wasn't just about addressing emergencies. It was about creating a culture of care and vigilance that extended to every corner of the resort. Evelyn Ashford had given Emily her full support, but Emily knew that convincing the rest of the leadership team would be an uphill battle. Some of them, like Graham Peterson, were skeptical of her sudden promotion, while others simply didn't like change. The conference room was a testament to Crystal Haven's opulence, with its polished mahogany table, high-backed leather chairs, and a wall of floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a breathtaking view of the surrounding mountains. As Emily entered, the department heads were already seated, their conversations hushed as they eyed her curiously. "Good morning," Emily began, her voice steady despite the nerves coiling in her stomach. "Thank you all for being here. I'm excited to share my vision for our new guest safety and well-being initiative." She moved to the head of the table, her hands resting lightly on the chair as she addressed the room. "I know some of you may have concerns about my experience or my qualifications for this role, and I understand that. But I want to assure you that my focus is on collaboration. This isn't about me. It's about what we can achieve together." Emily began her presentation, walking the team through her proposed changes. She highlighted areas of improvement based on her observations, from better training for staff on emergency procedures to more thorough checks of equipment and facilities. She also introduced ideas for proactive guest engagement, such as offering safety briefings for families and hosting workshops on topics like water safety. As she spoke, Emily could feel the tension in the room begin to ease. Some of the department heads nodded in agreement, while others scribbled notes or asked thoughtful questions. Even Graham Peterson, who had been one of her toughest critics, seemed intrigued by her ideas. By the end of the meeting, Emily felt a glimmer of hope. The team hadn't fully embraced her yet, but they were listening. And that was a start. Later that afternoon, Emily was reviewing the day's notes in her office when Noah Grant appeared at the door. He looked more serious than usual, his brow furrowed with concern. "Emily, do you have a minute?" he asked. "Of course," she replied, setting aside her papers. "What's going on?" Noah closed the door behind him and took a seat across from her. "It's about Franklin Miles. Evelyn wanted me to give you a heads up." Emily's heart skipped a beat. "What about him?" "He's been asking questions about you," Noah said, "digging into your background, your time at the resort, even your personal life. Evelyn believes he's looking for a way to undermine you, or worse." Emily's stomach churned. Why would he do that? He's already been fired. What more could he want? "Revenge," Noah said simply. Franklin's pride was his Achilles heel. Losing his position, especially under these circumstances, would have been a massive blow. He's not the kind of man to let that go. Emily leaned back in her chair, her mind racing. She had anticipated resistance from within the resort, but this was something entirely different. Franklin wasn't just a disgruntled former employee. He was a threat. Evelyn called an emergency meeting with Emily and the resort's security team later that evening. The atmosphere in the room was tense, the gravity of the situation palpable. "We've already increased security measures," Evelyn said, her tone firm. "But we need to be vigilant. Franklin knows this resort inside and out, and he's not above using that knowledge to cause trouble." Emily nodded, her jaw tightening. "What do you need me to do?" "Keep your focus on the initiative," Evelyn replied. "Let us handle Franklin. But if you notice anything unusual, anything at all, report it immediately." Emily agreed, though unease gnawed at her. She had worked hard to move forward, to build a better future for herself and her family. She wouldn't let Franklin Miles take that away from her. What Emily didn't know was that Franklin's plans were already in motion. Over the next few days, small disruptions began to occur at the resort. The delivery of critical supplies went missing. The security system experienced unexplained glitches, and most concerning of all, an anonymous email was sent to several department heads, accusing Emily of fabricating the details of her heroic rescue. The email claimed that Emily had staged the incident to gain sympathy and advance her career. It was a baseless accusation, but it sowed seeds of doubt among those who were already skeptical of her. Emily learned of the email when one of her colleagues, a kind-hearted woman named Sandra, approached her privately. "I don't believe a word of it," Sandra said, her voice filled with conviction. "But you should know that some people are talking." Emily's chest tightened. Who would do something like this? Sandra hesitated. "It doesn't aim Franklin directly, but the tone. It sounds like him." As the rumors spread, Emily felt the walls closing in. Her confidence, hard-won over the past week, began to waver. But she refused to give in to fear. Franklin Miles might have been a formidable adversary, but Emily Harper wasn't the kind of person to back down from a fight. What Emily didn't realize was that the email was just the beginning. Franklin had far more destructive plans in store. Plans that would not only threaten her career, but also the safety of everyone at Crystal Haven. The breaking point. Emily Harper's week of careful rebuilding at Crystal Haven had quickly descended into chaos. The anonymous email accusing her of fabricating the poolside rescue was just the tip of the iceberg. Small disruptions at the resort had escalated into major concerns, and rumors were spreading faster than she could address them. She sat in her office late that evening, the faint glow of her desk lamp the only light in the room. Her fingers tapped restlessly against the wood as she stared at her laptop screen, reviewing reports of equipment failures, delivery delays, and employee grievances that had cropped up over the past 3 days. Each incident seemed minor on its own, but together they painted a picture of deliberate sabotage. A soft knock on the door broke her focus. She glanced up to see Noah Grant stepping inside, his face grave. "We need to talk," he said, closing the door behind him. Emily motioned for him to sit, her stomach nodding at his tone. "What's happened now?" Noah placed a folder on her desk and slid it toward her. "Security found this in one of the staff lockers. It's a file on you, your work history, personal information, even medical records. Whoever put this together has been digging deep." Emily's heart sank as she flipped through the folder. The level of detail was invasive, almost violating. "Franklin," she said quietly. "It has to be him." Noah nodded. "We believe so, but he's not working alone. Someone on the inside is helping him." The weight of the revelation pressed down on Emily like a physical burden. "Do we know who?" "Not yet," Noah admitted, "but Evelyn is taking this very seriously. She's already brought in a private investigator to track Franklin's activities." Emily sighed, leaning back in her chair. "I can't believe this is happening. I thought the hardest part would be proving myself to the team, not defending myself against a man who's already been fired." Noah's expression softened. "You're handling this better than most people would. But Emily, you need to be careful. Franklin is clearly willing to cross lines, and we don't know how far he'll go." The following morning, the tension at Crystal Haven reached a boiling point. A fire alarm was triggered in one of the guest wings, forcing an evacuation. Guests and staff poured into the courtyard in a chaotic scene that disrupted the resort's operations for hours. Once the building was cleared, it was discovered that the alarm had been pulled manually, and security footage revealed a figure wearing a staff uniform fleeing the scene. Evelyn Ashford called an emergency meeting in the main conference room. The department heads filed in, their faces a mix of frustration and concern. Emily sat near the head of the table, her presence now the center of attention for all the wrong reasons. Evelyn wasted no time addressing the issue. "This resort is under attack," she began, her voice calm but authoritative. "Someone is actively working to undermine our operations, and we have reason to believe Franklin Miles is involved. We also believe he's receiving help from someone on staff." A murmur rippled through the room. Evelyn raised a hand to silence it. "I've already taken steps to address this," she continued. "Our private investigator is making progress, and additional security measures are being implemented. But I want to be clear. Anyone found aiding Franklin will face immediate termination and legal action." The room fell silent, the gravity of Evelyn's words settling over the group. After the meeting, Emily lingered in the hallway, her thoughts racing. She felt a tap on her shoulder and turned to see Graham Peterson, the head of facilities. His expression was uncharacteristically grim. "Got a minute?" he asked. Emily nodded, following him to a quieter corner of the building. Graham leaned against the wall, crossing his arms. "I wasn't going to say anything," he began, his voice low. "But after that meeting, I think you need to know. I overheard Marcus, one of the junior maintenance guys, talking to someone on the phone. He was saying something about Franklin's plan and how everything is in place." Emily's chest tightened. "When was this?" "Yesterday," Graham replied. "I didn't think much of it at the time, but now." Emily's mind raced. Marcus had always seemed a little distant, but she hadn't suspected him of being involved in anything nefarious. If Graham was right, Marcus could be the inside man helping Franklin. "Why didn't you tell security?" Emily asked, her tone sharper than she intended. Graham shrugged, looking uncomfortable. "I didn't have proof. Just a hunch. And honestly, I wasn't sure anyone would listen." Emily exhaled slowly, trying to steady her nerves. "Thank you for telling me. I'll make sure this gets looked into." That evening, Emily met with Evelyn and the head of security, relaying Graham's information. Evelyn's jaw tightened as she processed the news. "If Marcus is involved, we need to act quickly," Evelyn said. "I'll authorize an immediate investigation. In the meantime, Emily, I need you to stay focused on your work. Let us handle the rest." Emily nodded, though unease gnawed at her. She couldn't shake the feeling that Franklin's endgame was fast approaching, and that it would be devastating. 2 days later, Emily's worst fears were realized. It started with a power outage that plunged the entire resort into darkness. Guests panicked, and the emergency generators failed to activate, leaving the building in chaos. Emily was in the lobby at the time, helping direct guests to safety, when her phone buzzed with an urgent message from No. "Server room breached. Marcus caught on camera. Come immediately." Emily's heart pounded as she sprinted toward the server room, her flashlight cutting through the darkness. When she arrived, security guards were already restraining Marcus, who was shouting incoherently about Franklin. "We need to shut down the system," Marcus yelled as they dragged him away. "It's all rigged to blow." Emily froze. "Rigged to blow? What does he mean?" One of the guards handed her a tablet displaying the resort's internal network. He planted a malicious program in the servers. It's set to overload the electrical systems and cause a fire. Panic surged through Emily. "How long do we have?" "Minutes," the guard replied grimly. "Maybe less." Emily didn't hesitate. She rushed to the nearest control panel and began working to override the program. Her hands moved with a precision born of desperation as she navigated the unfamiliar system. Alarms blared around her, and sweat dripped down her temples as she fought against the clock. Come on," she muttered under her breath. Just as the timer ticked down to its final seconds, Emily entered the last command. The program froze, and the system began to stabilize. She collapsed against the wall, her chest heaving with relief. "It's over," she whispered, though the words felt hollow. She knew Franklin wouldn't stop until he had destroyed everything she had worked to build. What Emily didn't know was that Franklin was watching the entire scene unfold from a remote location. His face twisted into a sneer as he closed his laptop. "You may have won this round, Harper," he muttered. "But the game isn't over yet." A final stand. Emily Harper woke the next morning to a suffocating sense of dread. Though the immediate crisis of the server sabotage had been averted, the lingering tension within Crystal Haven remained palpable. Marcus was in custody, his betrayal leaving an undeniable scar on the resort's team. More troubling still was the knowledge that Franklin Miles was still out there, scheming in the shadows. Emily sat in her office, staring at the preliminary report from the private investigator Evelyn Ashford had hired. It detailed Franklin's recent activities, meetings with shady associates, transactions for equipment that could be used to bypass security systems, and even communications intercepted between him and Marcus. The report painted a grim picture. Franklin was not just bitter, he was dangerous. Her thoughts were interrupted by a sharp knock at the door. Noah Grant entered, his expression serious but tinged with urgency. "Evelyn wants to see you," he said. "Now." Emily stood, her nerves coiled like a spring. She followed Noah to Evelyn's private office, where the resort's owner was already waiting. Evelyn's normally composed demeanor was strained, her hands clasped tightly on the desk. "Emily," she began, her voice steadied despite the tension in the room. "We've uncovered something concerning." Evelyn gestured to a large screen on the wall, which displayed a live feed from the resort's security cameras. One image caught Emily's attention immediately. A black van parked in the service lot, its windows tinted and its plates obscured. "We believe Franklin is here," Evelyn said, her voice low. "That van arrived early this morning. Security spotted 2 men exiting and entering the service tunnels." Emily's stomach turned. What does he want? Evelyn's eyes darkened. Revenge, and to destroy what he can't have. As Evelyn explained the situation, Emily felt a fire ignite within her. Franklin wasn't just targeting the resort. He was targeting everything she had worked for. He wanted to see her fail, to strip away the progress she had made, and to prove she didn't deserve her new role. She refused to let him win. "What's the plan?" Emily asked, her voice firm. Evelyn leaned back, her expression hard. "We've called the authorities, but we don't have time to wait for them to arrive. If Franklin is in the tunnels, we need to secure the resort and stop whatever he's planning before it's too late." Emily nodded, her mind racing. "I'll help. I know the layout of the tunnels. I used to do inventory checks there when I was a pool attendant." Evelyn hesitated. "Emily, this could be dangerous. Are you sure?" Emily's gaze was unwavering. "I'm sure." The tunnels beneath Crystal Haven were a labyrinth of narrow passages and utility rooms, their walls lined with pipes and electrical conduits. Emily and a small team of security personnel descended into the dimly lit space, their flashlights casting eerie shadows. The air was thick and damp, and every sound seemed amplified. The crunch of their footsteps, the distant hum of machinery, the occasional drip of water. Emily's heart pounded, but she pushed the fear aside, focusing on the task at hand. "Over here," one of the guards whispered, pointing to a trail of muddy footprints. They followed the trail deeper into the tunnels, their flashlights illuminating a series of footprints leading to a large storage room. Emily motioned for the team to stop and crouched low, peering through the slightly ajar door. Inside, Franklin stood with 2 accomplices, their faces partially obscured by masks. They were hunched over a device that looked like a makeshift control panel, wires snaking out of it and connecting to various points along the walls. Emily's stomach sank. Explosives. Franklin's voice echoed in the confined space. "This place took everything from me. It's time I return the favor. One of his accomplices glanced nervously at the timer on the device. Are you sure about this? We don't have much time. Shut up and keep working, Franklin snapped. When this is over, no one will remember Emily Harper as a hero. They'll remember her as a failure. Emily clenched her fists, her anger overpowering her fear. She turned to the security team and whispered, "We need to stop them now." The guards nodded, moving into position. Emily stayed behind them, her heart racing as they stormed the room. "Freeze!" one of the guards shouted, aiming his weapon at Franklin and his men. Chaos erupted. Franklin's accomplices raised their hands, stepping away from the device, but Franklin lunged for the control panel, his hand hovering over a trigger. "Don't!" Emily shouted, stepping forward. "Franklin, you don't have to do this." Franklin turned to her, his face contorted with rage. "This is all your fault," he spat. "You took everything from me." "I didn't take anything," Emily said, her voice calm but firm. "You made choices that led you here. This doesn't have to end like this." Franklin hesitated, his hand trembling over the trigger. For a moment, Emily thought she might have gotten through to him. But then his expression hardened. "You're wrong," he said. "It ends here." Before he could press the trigger, one of the guards tackled him, the two of them crashing to the ground in a blur of movement. The trigger fell from Franklin's hand, skittering across the floor. Emily darted forward, grabbing the trigger and the device's control panel. Her hands moved quickly, disconnecting wires and shutting down the system. Her father's lessons on electrical work came flooding back as she worked, her fingers steady despite the adrenaline surging through her. The timer on the device stopped at 0:17. Franklin was restrained and led away by the guards, his face a mask of fury and defeat. Emily stood in the now silent room, her hands trembling as she processed what had just happened. Noah arrived moments later, breathless from running through the tunnels. "Emily, are you okay?" She nodded, though her legs felt like they might give out at any moment. "It's over," she said quietly. "He can't hurt us anymore." In the days that followed, Franklin was formally charged with multiple crimes, including attempted sabotage and endangerment. His accomplices cooperated with authorities, providing additional evidence against him. The resort returned to a sense of normalcy, though the memory of the ordeal lingered. Evelyn called a staff meeting to publicly acknowledge Emily's role in stopping Franklin's plan. Standing before her colleagues, Emily felt a mixture of pride and humility as Evelyn recounted her bravery and determination. "Emily Harper is more than a hero," Evelyn said. "She's a leader, a protector, and the heart of what makes Crystal Haven extraordinary." The room erupted in applause, and for the first time, Emily felt fully embraced by the team. The doubts and whispers had faded, replaced by respect and admiration. That evening, Emily stood on the resort's rooftop terrace, looking out over the twinkling lights of Willow Creek. Evelyn joined her, holding 2 glasses of champagne. "To you," Evelyn said, raising her glass, "and to the future." Emily smiled, clinking her glass against Evelyn's. "To the future." As she sipped the champagne, Emily felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. She had faced her greatest challenge and emerged stronger, not just for herself, but for her family and the resort she now called home. The storm was over, and Emily Harper was ready for whatever came next.